Hey everybody, Bluetooth. Let's talk about Bluetooth. So, who is familiar with Bind runes? If you're familiar with Bind runes, you know with Norse culture, as far as what it was used for back then, it was not only a language and a secret language, but it also had magical spells and incantations and stuff that went behind it. See, a lot of people aren't familiar with the symbols and the things that are out in the world today and think that they're these new things when really they're not. There's nothing new under the sun. You know, just because you change the meaning of something and use it in a different way doesn't mean it's actually different. It just means that the original meaning of it somehow got lost in translation. I'm going to read parts of an article just to give a bit of context. Normally, when people talk about runes, they think of casting the runes in order to get a view into the potential future. The image of the vulva, aka seer, sitting in a dark cave with a fire, throwing down the runes and telling a young adventurer whether his next quest will be profitable or survivable, carries with us even into this day. However, when the Vikings were at their height, the use of runes in magic didn't reach just the concept of divination. In fact, there are very few references to runic divination in historic literature. Runic magic does extend into the concept of active magic, where one just didn't try to see into the future but attempted to have an impact as well. A common practice was to combine a series of runes into a pattern and then ask upon the gods for a given result. This result could be a blessing or it could be a curse. Maybe that's partially why in the Bible it talks in Matthew 18:18 about what is bound on earth is bound in heaven. You know, oftentimes people partake in things unknowingly. A lot of people don't know what Bluetooth is. They just think it's something that's on your phone. They don't know the magic behind it. See, it's good to know where things come from so that you're not deceived. Now, I'm not trying to teach you magic, as I always say. I'm not trying to talk bad or anything about any of these things either, per se, but what I do want is for you guys to be educated. I want people to see a little bit of what this symbolism stands for. Now, for us, you know, I know intent is everything. You know, people have different reasons for different things. So I'm not trying to say that everybody who does bindings is meaning evil intent, but I'm not saying it's a good thing either, because, you know, anytime you're calling on any of the lower gods, what do you think's going to happen? That's just like when you call on demons. See, a demon will do your bidding if you call on them, if you summon them, sure. But guess what? That demon's going to be pissed off that you have summoned them. They're going to be nice to you and do everything you want up front until they can get away from you. And then guess what? Because when you trap souls or when you try to bind things, when they get free, if you think there's going to be no repercussions, you got another thing coming. So, you know, it's very important that you don't mess with things that you don't have knowledge on. So I'm just trying to educate people so that you're not blind or deceived to some of the stuff out here.
That is the Bluetooth logo. So this technology logo is named after the Viking king Hagal Bluetooth, and the name is his initials written in runes, like you can see here. And the story goes that Hagal Bluetooth was the first king to unify the tribes of Scandinavia. Bluetooth inventor Jim Cardrich wanted to name this new technology after King Bluetooth because they both accomplish the same things, unity and communication. But as usual, the mainstream leaves out huge parts of the story and gets things completely wrong very often. So in this video, I'm telling you about who the real Hagal Bluetooth was and who was really kind of an asshole. Okay, so the problem with a lot of these kings from the Viking Age is that the sources say different things about them, and certain sources are definitely more reliable than others. But anyway, what we do know is that he was a Danish king that reigned from the year 958 to 986. We don't know exactly when he was born, but it was probably in the 920s sometimes, and he died right around the time that his reign ended in 986. All of this is quite late in the Viking Age, actually, and a critical time when Christianity was trying to establish itself in Scandinavia. Now, where does the name Bluetooth come from? That's the most important thing. Well, we only have one source that refers to him by this nickname, and that is this source that you see here. Here it refers to him as Blåtan, or Blåtan, meaning bluish or bluish-black tooth. We are not 100% sure why. One chronicle a couple hundred years later after his time said that he must have been called this name because he had a rotten bluish black tooth. That sounds, probably not true. I mean, he was a king, and if he had rotten teeth, his people probably would not have used this nickname to insult their king. But this king is a bit different because the Danish people actually hated him because he was a Christian and he tried to force that religion on the pagan people there. And I'll tell you exactly why in just a minute, but yes, he was hated. It might be possible that he actually was called this name, Bluetooth, as a derogatory thing to insult or make fun of him. I have heard historians in more modern times suggest that this nickname was because he loved blueberries and it colored his teeth blue. I don't know about that. Blueberries don't grow a whole lot in Denmark. If he was living in the mountains of Norway, I would say maybe, because blueberries are everywhere there, of course, but in Denmark, not so much. If you ask my opinion, I say his nickname Bluetooth was a metaphor, because in the Old Norse language, it's filled with metaphors and hidden meanings they call kenningar, but much of these meanings were totally lost when Christianity came in, and most of them we have absolutely no idea about now. One possibility is that sometimes bluish-black color is a metaphor for the dead, since that's the color that a corpse turns. So maybe Hagal had a taste for dead people. Who knows? Maybe he liked to kill people, or maybe, cannibalism or something like that. No way to be sure. But that's just one possibility that this was a kenning, as much Norse poetry and names were made up of. Anyway, let's get on into his life. He started as a king of Denmark, but was able to convince a part of Norway to come under his rule when the Norwegian king Harald Greycloak was assassinated. And actually he was King Bluetooth's nephew, his sister's son. And there was really no one suitable enough or old enough to be the king of all Norway at that time, so Hagal Bluetooth took temporary control over Norway. I think it was for about 5-10 years, but I'll put that up on the screen. And this is where the Bluetooth story comes from, of unication and communication within the kingdoms and tribes of Scandinavia. However, I don't think he unified people very well at all, and people hated him, and I'm going to tell you why. And now, each source here, like you can see, has a slightly different story, but they all have to do with this Christianization and backlash from the Danish people about this. One source here, Videkund of Convey, and Saxo Grammaticus, actually, they write that Hagal Bluetooth was converted by a priest named Papa, and he performed miracles to make Hagal a believer. Another story said that Hagal was forcibly converted after a defeat in battle to the German king and Roman Emperor Otto I. And the third, this is probably the most reliable source, honestly, in my opinion, Heimskringla, and he writes that Harald converted willingly because of a peace agreement with the German king Otto II. Either way, he became Christian and his people were not very happy. Even his son, Svein Forkbeard, did not appreciate his father converting to this new religion, so eventually he started an uprising in Denmark and led a revolt against his father with the love and support of the Danish and Norwegian people. And that was it. They had a battle, and Harald Bluetooth dies from the battle wounds shortly after, and his son Svein expelled him and all of the other Christian forces and churches out of the country. He's like, get the hell out of here, bitch, this is pagan country. So that's what they did. So Svein is one of our greatest heroes that our people ever had, and this is just the start of his story. He led an even bigger revolt a bit later on in time against the horrible king Olav Tryggvason, and he became king of Norway for a time, and he even became king of all England. But Svein's story is for another day. Another video speaking about his father Harald Bluetooth here. So as you can see, he was not that great of a king and he didn't unify the people at all. But if you do like him and want to see more, he had some very famous rune stones erected in Jelling, Denmark. And he's also, it's either him or his father buried in the church there in Jelling. And he even had his pagan father dug up from the traditional Norse burial mound and had him reburied the Christian way in a church graveyard. So, you know, if you're a Christian, most of them probably like Harald Bluetooth, but if you're pagan, you probably don't like him. So, anyway, that's the story of Harald. That's it for today. Vi ses nästa gång.
Speaking to Lars Magnar Enoksen, one of the last Vikings. You have the Viking blood, I have the Viking blood. We really come from these people.
Yes.
And you're also an expert on runes.
Yeah, because the runes, there are many aspects of the runes, because runes, of course, means letters, but it also means knowledge, secret. It means something that is secret. It also means that a good friend. It has many meanings. There is also the spiritual, the magical aspects, and that is, of course, the most difficult to learn. So what people in the modern society that's wrong, they get interested on the spiritual things without knowing the basic, that it is the letters, how to make graphically. But if you're able to really dig deep into it, then there is a lot of power in the runes. And you can also, if you use it as sounds, if you go back to the original words that you can find with the runes, you have immense of power. And it's also, you use also runic poems that can extract the deeper meanings of the runes. But in a modern society, you just sit and meditate of the runes and find out. That is not the old style. Old style, you have to really dig deep into it and grasp the runes. As Odin, when Odin hangs himself 9 nights on Yggdrasil to find the secret of the runes, and then he grasps it, and grasp, nam, is the same word as at learning it. So when you have grasped it, then you have learned it, and then you should scream and take it, and then you have the power.
How did we get from King Bluetooth to this? Well, Bluetooth was developed in Norway and Sweden in the 90s, and it helped devices communicate with each other, much like the warring factions of the past. But what about the logo? It's actually a combination of his initials. What do Norse graves look like? It sometimes look like nothing at all, because the dead were cremated along with all their belongings. If you're important enough, you'd be buried with 2 live slaves to help serve you in your afterlife. Ain't that a bummer? Once a slave, always a slave. Large upright rocks usually mean grave sites, and men were usually buried with their weapons or artisan tools, and women were buried with house tools and jewelry. The more interesting finds lie under a tumulus or barrow. One specific site was that of Queen Asa. She was buried with weapons, tools, 14 horses, an ox, 3 dogs, and a human. Oh, and her ship. That's right, the whole ship. Speaking of which, ships are one of the key advantages Vikings had that allowed them to explore a large part of Europe.
Let's just glance over this article a bit on Bluetooth.com, the story behind Bluetooth technology. So let's just kind of go to the bottom part, code for collaboration. In '96, 3 industry leaders, Intel, Ericsson, and Nokia, met to plan the standardization of the short-term radio technology to support connectivity and collaboration between different products and industries. If you ask how far back my knowledge goes, how long I've been studying the crafts and the arts, since birth, I was born into it. I'm a moon child, I'm a star seed, I'm an indigo child. My mother's a practitioner, most of my family were practitioners. So knowing the arts has always been something I've known. Now, do I follow them? That's a whole different story. I don't lead the same life as most of the people in my family. I'm kind of the black sheep because my belief system is a little different than theirs. But hey, some like to build, some like to destroy. Then some like to pretend Earth is a toy. I'm not one of them.